what transpires behind prison walls when child molesters and sexual offenders find themselves confined? In this exploration, we uncover the stories of individuals convicted of society's most abhorrent crimes, shedding light on the unique code of justice that often emerges within the prison community. These are the tales of those who got what they deserved behind bars, challenging our notions of justice and morality in the confines of a hidden world. Roy William Whiting. Imagine a sunny day in the UK where 8-year-old Sarah Payne, with the sweetest of smiles, played an innocent game of hide and seek with her siblings. It was a day like any other, but within moments, the world would be forever changed. Sarah, the very picture of childhood innocence, wandered off after hitting her head. Her cries for help went unanswered, and her family's frantic search began. Days turned into weeks, and the once hopeful search party was consumed by despair. 16 agonizing days passed, and then the unimaginable happened. Sarah's naked body was discovered, lying lifeless in a shallow grave. Her face, forever etched in terror, told a haunting tale of the horrors she had endured. The shockwaves of Sarah's disappearance reverberated through the entire nation, and the search for her abductor became a relentless pursuit of justice. The name that would forever be linked to this heinous crime was Roy William Whiting. Initially, the justice system seemed to falter. Whiting was sentenced to a mere 4 years for abduction and indecent assault, a punishment that many felt was far too lenient for such a monstrous act. Astonishingly, he was released after just over 2 years, a decision that would haunt the authorities. However, in 2002, the wheels of justice began to turn once more. Roy William Whiting was handed a 50-year minimum sentence, later reduced to 40 years, effectively making him eligible for parole at the age of 82. The nation watched as this predator was finally held accountable for the vile crime he had committed. Richard Huckle. Imagine a man named Richard Huckle, an English freelance photographer who had chosen to live in Malaysia. To the world, he appeared as ordinary as the next person, concealing a chilling secret beneath the facade of normality. Little did anyone know, this man would soon be unmasked as one of the most depraved individuals to ever walk the earth. The year was 2014, and in the darkest corners of the internet, law enforcement stumbled upon a disturbing network of pedophiles hiding their vile crimes on the dark web. Richard Huckle was among them, his online presence bearing a sinister distinction. But it wasn't his online persona alone that gave him away. It was a tiny, seemingly insignificant freckle on one of his fingers. That freckle would prove to be his undoing. The wheels of justice began to turn, and in December 2014, at Gatwick Airport, they finally caught up with Richard Huckle. He was arrested, marking the beginning of a shocking revelation that would leave an entire nation in disbelief. Huckle stood accused of a staggering 91 charges, each more nightmarish than the last. These charges included the sexual abuse of children, some as young as a horrifying 6 months old. The weight of his crimes was too much for society to bear. The horror of the innocent lives he had forever scarred was unimaginable. Initially, Huckle chose to plead not guilty, perhaps clinging to a sliver of hope that he could escape the consequences of his monstrous actions. However, as the evidence piled up and the stories of the innocent victims he had traumatized came to light, he could no longer deny the truth. Huckle eventually confessed to a staggering 71 of the charges, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. Yet, the story did not come to a close in the sterile confines of a courtroom. In 2019, Richard Huckle, the man responsible for unspeakable horrors inflicted upon defenseless children, met his own gruesome end within the unforgiving walls of a prison. He was brutally stabbed to death by a fellow inmate named Paul Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald's motive was painfully clear. He sought revenge for the heinous crimes that Huckle had committed against innocent children. Huckle faced an astonishing 91 charges, including the sexual abuse of children as young as 6 months old. Despite initially pleading not guilty, he later confessed to 71 of the charges. Huckle's despicable crimes horrified the nation. However, the story didn't end there. In 2019, Huckle met his demise in prison, having been stabbed to death by a fellow inmate named Paul Fitzgerald, who sought revenge for Huckle's crimes against innocent children. DeAndre Austin. DeAndre Austin's story is a harrowing tale of betrayal and darkness that unfolded within the confines of his own family. Convicted of committing multiple offenses against his young nieces, Austin's actions would ultimately lead to a life sentence, with only a remote possibility of parole. However, his journey would take a chilling turn within the unforgiving walls of prison. The grim narrative began with the revelation of Austin's unspeakable crimes, a series of sexual offenses inflicted upon his 3 young nieces, identified as Jane Doe 1, 2, and 3. These horrors unfolded over several years, during which Austin shared living quarters with the innocent girls from 2002 to 2006. What should have been a place of safety within their own family became a nightmarish world of abuse. The living arrangements were far from ideal, with Jane Doe 1 forced to sleep in the living room, just feet away from Austin's presence. It was within this seemingly ordinary setting that Austin's predatory tendencies emerged. Initially, his actions were subtle, making the innocent child uncomfortable with his unwarranted touch. However, with time, his depravity escalated to horrifying levels. By the time Jane Doe 1 reached the age of 10, she found herself subjected to terrifying manhandling and explicit violations. Shockingly, Austin's predatory behavior extended to all 3 girls. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching aspect of this tragedy was that their own grandparents did not believe them, leaving the young victims to suffer in silence. The justice system responded with a life sentence for Austin, a sentence that offered a glimmer of hope for parole, though faint. Yet, DeAndre Austin's story took an ominous and perplexing turn within the confines of prison, a place where one might expect justice to prevail. In a tragic twist of fate, Austin met his own end, a death shrouded in mystery. Fellow inmate Rodney Jordan emerged as the prime suspect, casting a chilling shadow over the circumstances surrounding Austin's demise. The haunting and tragic tale of DeAndre Austin forces us to confront the horrifying reality of abuse within families, a stark reminder of the profound and lasting trauma inflicted upon the innocent. It leaves us grappling with the unsettling presence of malevolence that can manifest even within the closest of family bonds, and it raises haunting questions about the boundaries of trust and the depths of betrayal. Ashley James Brofo. The life of Ashley James Brofo bore scars from the very beginning, scars of childhood abuse and violence that would come to define his disturbing path. However, it was in the year 2022 that the true extent of his depravity was shockingly revealed, casting a dark shadow over the tranquil landscape of Australia. Brofo's childhood was marred by the horrors of abuse and violence, experiences that left an indelible mark on his psyche. In 2022, an innocent young girl unwittingly crossed paths with Brofo near a peaceful park. What should have been a carefree day in the sun turned into a nightmare as Brofo unleashed his malevolent nature, assaulting this vulnerable child. The incident sent shockwaves through the community and left an indescribable trauma in its wake. Swiftly, the wheels of justice turned. Brofo was sentenced to a potentially life-altering punishment, facing the prospect of up to 20 years behind bars. Society breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that this predator would face the consequences of his unspeakable actions. However, the story took an unexpected and chilling turn. After serving a mere fraction of his sentence, just 1 year, Brofo's life came to an abrupt and tragic end. His lifeless body was discovered, unresponsive in his prison cell, sending shockwaves through the very institution meant to hold him accountable. Authorities treated Brofo's death as suspicious, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the circumstances surrounding his demise. It served as a haunting reminder that even within the confines of a prison, where individuals are meant to face the consequences of their deeds, darkness and danger can still lurk, and unanswered questions can linger in the air.